Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Brainwashed Broke series. We are back again. All we know that this whole show is all about those brainwashing patterns and how we've been programmed since our young age to follow this type of script, this type of vision that somebody basically preset it for us before we've been even able to do it by ourselves. And this whole purpose of this show is to help people help realize what we are capable of, and that we can actually change our lives and we don't have to lead our lives based on live our lives based on somebody else's scripts. So without further ado, I'm super pumped to have another guest on this show, and his name is Bashar Katu, and I'm super pumped to have you here, brother. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man. That's awesome.
Amazing. Let's dive in, and let's jump to your story. How did you get into entrepreneurship? How your childhood looked like, actually, and so on. Like, give us a little bit of more of you. How did you get and who you are, and so on.
For sure, man. So, I'm 35 right now, turning 36 in a couple months. But it started back when I was maybe like 4 or 5. As early as I can remember, I always had a nagging feeling that I wanted to do something big in my life. I don't know what, don't know why, don't know what it was or where it came from. It was like a knowing. It wasn't like an if, it was more of a when. In 2003, when I was 13 years old, the war on Iraq happened, where the U.S. military pretty much invaded Iraq, Baghdad, and kind of similar to the Venezuela situation right now. Unfortunately, they kind of didn't do it right then. Hopefully, they learn from it and they don't repeat the same mistake now. After living there for about 2-3 years, we realized that living here is no longer a feasible thing, because every night we'd go to sleep not knowing if we're going to wake up the next morning. Bombings everywhere, people dying on the streets, arms cut off, legs cut off, all that stuff happening. Real life, action movie happening 365. And that's when we realized, all right, we got to go. And so we migrated to America, went to Detroit, Michigan for a year, then moved to San Diego, California for about 14 years. And 5 years ago, I made it to Miami, which is where I live. All throughout the last whatever 20 some years, my mom wanted me to become a doctor, right? Because in her mind, to have a good life, you should go to school, get a degree, and if you're going to do that, might as well become a doctor. My older sister had become an attorney, a lawyer in Iraq, and she was doing pretty well in life, so she wanted me to become a doctor. And there was about a good year and a half that actually started going to school to become a doctor. And why I really resonate with the theme of the show is because although, one can say, well, my mom wanted my best interest at heart, because she did, but I almost got brainwashed and sold into doing something that I did not really want to do, until one day I woke up and realized, if I do this, I probably will make it happen, because I was pretty smart in school, but I'm not going to actually do something that I want. I'm going to be living my mom's dream, not mine. And obviously, there is nothing wrong with becoming a doctor. I would have probably become very wealthy, because there is an entrepreneurial bug inside of me where I probably would have, brought in my entrepreneurial spirit into being a doctor and maybe, open hospitals and done all that kind of stuff. But I don't know if that would have been something that I would have been passionate about, right? And I decided to drop out of school, although, my mom was devastated. She did not know for about 6 to 8 months, and followed, my father's footsteps, because my father was actually an entrepreneur in Iraq. He owned the second largest factory of clothing in Iraq. Due to the war, he lost everything and was never able to recoup. But I wanted, I always looked up to him. I wanted to become an entrepreneur. And at the age of 19, I started my first business, family business. Since then, I have founded and launched 9 different businesses in different sectors, and I think in 5 or 6 different industries. Right now, I am, my last 2 businesses have been in the online arena, and that's kind of how we met and why we're here.
Yeah, that's awesome. This is incredible story, bro. Like you went from like through lots of things when it comes to experiencing what you've experienced in Iraq. That's pretty nuts to me. Like this is a really rare situation that people can literally be in, or do you know what I'm trying to say? Because like this is not usual way what you like when you living in Europe, for example, or I don't think even in the US you experience something like that, which is crazy to me. And from there, like have you been always like motivated by your dad, or how affected like seeing your dad building this like businesses and so on, or having his so successful business, how did affected that your journey of becoming successful?
So I think, sometimes people say, like it was a couple weeks ago, I had a podcast with, I don't know if you know Matthew Volquin, but he has a, like a copywriting community or whatever. And then the question that came up was, hey, I have a lot of students that start making $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month, and then they kind of get like lazy or something. They don't want to continue scaling.
Yep.
And my answer to him was, well, what they need is they need a different environment, because someone making 3, 4, 5, if you hang out with people that make 1 or 2 or 3,000, you're the top dog, right? You're at the top of the food chain. But if you start hanging out with people that are making 20, 30, 50K, like, first of all, that's making 5K to them is kind of pathetic. It's like, how do you even live on that, right? Where to you, it's like, oh my God, I'm the top of the food chain. So I always say that your environment dictates your future. And that's why if you want to change your future, if you want to change your outcome, you need to change your environment. And so to kind of circle back to your question, I guess my future was dictated by my environment. And so my reference point was my father. And so to me, I looked up to him, right? Now, if my dad was a doctor, maybe I would have become a doctor. If if I had a rich uncle that made his money in real estate, maybe I would have gotten in real estate. If I also had an older brother who was a criminal and was a drug addict, I probably would have, taken that route or tried to go that route, And so it's all about reference point. It's all about like, what is your surrounding? And that usually shapes your future. Now, that said, it shapes the beginning of your future. It doesn't mean that you get absorbed in it and then you continue in it. And I think that's also a big part of the theme of your show, which is like, we don't want to allow the system that we were born into to dictate our future. Yeah, sure, you're born rich or poor or this or that or whatever, but it's like, you can't control how you're born or what you're born into, but you can control what happens later, right?
100%.
And so for me, that had a massive impact on why I became an entrepreneur. It had a massive impact on why I took this path. It's because, my father was an entrepreneur. Again, he was very successful for a while, and then he wasn't. And he hasn't been successful in like 30 years, right? And so growing up, I saw that, and to me, I subconsciously and I guess subconsciously and unsubconsciously, I kind of started learning from why is it that he grew his wealth and then wasn't able to maintain it and sustain it, and then started kind of like putting the pieces together, and then that shaped, who I am today.
Right. Yeah, that makes completely sense. What did you say that he was? What type of business he was in?
He owned a clothing factory, so his factory would make like shirts and suits and that kind of stuff. Pants. Right. I don't know about pants, but I think they were specialized in like button-up shirts at the time.
Yeah. Well, this is really interesting. Like, when it comes to like, I'm thinking from the bigger perspective, like, it's not. Well, it is a bunch of, and it is really like, it's really interesting industry to go, like starting a business in. I don't think that I know anybody who's doing something similar like that or so on, like even these days. Anyways, but yeah, so when you moved to, or you decided to move to US, because of the circumstances and everything. So what actually have you been already that time building a businesses, or you have like it all happened when you moved to US?
I was 16 years old at the time when we moved here, so no, I didn't have any, I don't want to say I didn't have any interest in business. Living in Iraq and growing in Iraq, you don't really think of the future very much, because especially the last 3 years of my life there, from the age 13 to the age 16, our day-to-day life was, will there be power today? Are we going to have, like, what time is the electricity going to be here? Are we going to have enough water to shower and do whatever? A lot of, because the lack of power, a lot of our, I don't know how it is in Europe, but like here in America, there is natural gas that comes from the government, right? And so, like, if you want to turn on your stove, there's gas that comes to your stove. Although right now it's all electric. But at the time, well, even until now, there's no natural gas that comes from the government. It's, you buy these, I don't know what they're called in English, but these like big old metal things that have gas inside, and then you tap it in, and then it goes to your stove, and then you turn it on. So it's like, do I have those, or do I need to get some? And if I need to get some, it's like, where do I go and get some? We need to leave the house to go whatever, to work or whatever. Do we have enough gas in the car? And if we don't, where do we get gas from? Because there's no gas. Iraq is, I want to say, we have the fifth largest oil reserve in the world. Yet there was literally no gas in gas stations. The first year and a half after the war, you would wait for 2 days in the line just to get gas. 2 days, bro.
Insane.
You would sleep outside. Like, I remember my brother, I was young, but my brother was in his mid-20s, early 20s, mid-20s. What he would do is, he and his friends everyone would take like their family's cars, and then they would do like a stakeout, for like 2-3 days, sitting in the line, playing dominoes and playing the chess and blah blah blah, and just like hanging out. There was no smartphones, there was no internet, there was no electricity, so it's not like you can pass time by doing that. There was no personal computers. This is 2003. No personal computers, no internet, none of that. You know what I mean? And so that was kind of the life that we had there. So you're not thinking of the future. You're not thinking of like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, building a business. Like, you're not really thinking that. Yeah. And then also the Eastern world optimizes for the husband, the father is the breadwinner, and he's the one that goes out and works and stuff like that.
Yep.
The kids stay home until they're married. The kids go to school, get a degree. Like, if you're talking about the Western world, like pushing on universities and college, like, man, the Eastern world until today, it's like you go to school, you get a degree. That's how you become successful. Even if you don't do shit with your degree, like, even to go get married, it's not like that right now, but like up until 10, 20 years ago, a lot of the marriage was arranged marriage, right? Yeah. It's like, hey, mom, I want to get married. All right, well, she calls her sisters, whatever. Like, hey, my son's trying to get married, and they arrange the wedding. If you're not educated, if you don't have a degree, it's like you're not educated, like you're not good enough, right? And so it optimizes for that. And so again, growing up, you're not thinking business, you're not thinking entrepreneurship, you're thinking, I'm going to go to school, I'm going to get a degree, and then whatever happens after happens. After we came to America, however, it was like a brand new world that opened up for us that we did not even realize actually existed. Wow. That's where the possibilities became a thing. That's where we started looking around, and we're like, shit, I could do whatever the hell I want. The fact that there is running water all the time, electricity all the time, the simple day-to-day stuff that we used to think about every day are no longer like things that are holding you back or things that are weighing on your mind. So now you're free to think about the future, to think about the possibility, right? And then little by little, as you start doing and accomplishing, more doors open, and then that's when your vision starts growing little by little until it, reaches certain places. And obviously the goal is to continue growing that vision, but that's how it all started.
That's crazy, bro. I didn't know that this is like how it is in Iraq and so on, like, because I had never been there, right? So it's like, and most of the people, I don't think, like, if you are not really from Iraq, I don't think that most of the people are going there like intentionally and so on. Like, this is really interesting.
Yeah, you don't go there to go vacationing. That's not a place to go to vacation.
Yeah. So when did you jump into entrepreneurship? Did you experience some type of mindset blocks or so on, like, that actually, like, stop you from achieving or moving forward? Or like, what was the biggest problem kinda that you had to to have to deal with to be able to be successful?
I mean, at the age of 19, there was a lot of things I did not know. Not only did I not have experience in business, I did not have experience in life. The biggest problem that I dealt with up until I was maybe like late 20s, like 27, 28, for the first decade of my entrepreneurship journey, was ego. I struggled a lot with ego. Until today, I struggle with it a little bit. I don't want to say a little bit. I struggle with it. Not as much as I did, a decade ago.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. When you say ego, what do you mean by that? What do you give us an example?
Sure. So here's an example. At the age of 23, I started my own business by myself. At the age of 19, my family and I started our first business in America after a few years of being here. It was a local pizzeria. It was, at the time, me, my brother, my mom and dad running it, operating it 7 days a week, open, close, and we did that for about 2-3 years. At the age of 23, I convinced my family that that they should take all the money that they had made from the pizzeria and everything and then invest it in me so I can buy my own business. And so I did. And at the time when I was running that place, again, although I was an entrepreneur for 2-3 years, but I still did not have a whole lot of experience. And at the time, I thought that I knew it all. And no one could tell me what to do.
All right. Yep.
I would not listen to anyone's advice. If anyone told me what to do, I would literally kick people out of my restaurant. It was a restaurant. I literally would kick people out of a restaurant if they try to tell me what to do and hey, or give me feedback. I would not listen to feedback, right? I would not allow people to tell me what to do. I knew it all. I was the master at everything. At the age of freaking 23, it's what can you really know? And so at the time, it was the lack of humility and it was ego. And I would say the lack of awareness. And what I mean by the lack of awareness is, right now, do I make mistakes? Hell yeah, every single day I make mistakes. But I am aware when I make mistakes. And I am humble enough to admit my mistakes. And then I'm all right, what happened here? What's the mistake that I make? What can I learn from it? How can I make sure that this doesn't happen in the future? And then I did not have the awareness to realize that I was actually making mistakes so I can extract lessons from them. There's a quote that I lived by for the longest time, and that is, I never lose, I either win or I learn. Well, you don't learn unless you admit fault, reflect, extract lessons. Otherwise, you're not learning, you're actually losing, right? And it's funny because for about half a decade, I lived by that quote, but did not actually do what that quote said, which is learn. Because I never actually learned, because I never actually took the time to admit fault, to reflect on the experience, extract lessons, and pivot. You know what I mean?
Yep, 100%. And I don't think that you are alone there. I think I've been pretty similar, even though I've been my biggest issue right from the beginning was confident in myself.
The lack of or overconfidence?
No, lack of confidence.
Lack of, okay, got it.
Because I've been always when I was growing up, I was always pushed over when it comes to, because I was super tiny, and I was always pushed around. People was bullying me in the school because I was always dreamer, being completely in different state of mind than most of the people in the school. And so people were just being picky about it, right? So they just literally did, and at that time, and especially in our country where we live, that was pretty rough because I've been in school where I've been playing football all the time. We've been football school with one of the really good team of the region. And so those guys had a confidence. So when I came there without confidence, pretty much because all the time, how I was raised and, by my grandparents and so on. So I was always picked on. But either way, it helped me a lot for 100%. But I've been dealing with it until literally we moved to the different country. And that helped me to move me a little bit, start thinking differently and so on.
Well, see, here's the interesting thing is you struggled with a lack of confidence. I struggled with overconfidence.
That's crazy.
That's technically that's technically what ego comes from, is I'm way too confident in myself. And what that does is, obviously it's good because you don't need permission to start. You don't need permission to what's called. But then what it does is that it blinds you. It's a blind spot. You have blind spots everywhere because you think you know it all when you really don't,
Yeah. I see. Yeah, because the thing is, my situation, it wasn't like that I've been actually like, I had a problem or asking people for permissions, for example, or so on. It was more like that I haven't been confident enough to show up online, like on on camera, or being and talking to people and so on.
Sure.
It's my second language and blah blah blah, this type of things all the time, being going through my head. So for example, what would you say to those type of people who's struggling something with that? Because like you gave really good example of when there's somebody who's really confident and like blinding them. What would you do for those people who are actually lacking it?
So I just want to establish something. You always have, you're always, whether you like it or not, you're always making a decision. You're either making a decision to do something or making a decision not to do something, but a decision is being made, right? Oftentimes what we think is that by not making a decision, we don't need to feel uncomfortable, because that's what it is. At the end of the day, we're optimizing for feelings here. We're optimizing for the way that we feel, right? And so when we try to do something that doesn't feel familiar, it feels uncomfortable. And so we think that if we don't make a decision to do something that feels uncomfortable, then that means we don't need to feel that feeling. But you are making a decision by just not deciding right now. You're pushing it down the line. But the problem is, when you get to a certain point, what will happen that will be more uncomfortable than you making a different decision right now is regret. Because regret is more uncomfortable than anything else. And it's going to give you the worst feeling than anything else, right? I always talk about the story of Jeff Bezos. 1994, Bezos making multiple six figures in the 90s. I don't know what that's worth today. Probably at least $300,000 to $500,000 a year. He goes to his boss and he says, I want to quit because I want to start this company. What are your chances of winning? I have no idea. I don't think it'll happen. So why the hell would you give this up? Because I can always go get a job again, but if I don't do this, when I wake up and I'm 80, I'm going to regret not doing it. So he quits the job, he builds Amazon, and now he's one of the richest people in the world. So the story here, the moral of the story here is that we're at the end of the day optimizing for feeling good. And you're always making a decision either to do something or not to do something. But understand that usually the right decision is the one that makes you feel most uncomfortable. It's the one that makes you fearful the most. It's like firefighters. When everyone runs away from the fire, they run towards the fire because they know that's where they need to go. So the same thing here. If you think about yourself as a firefighter, do you think that they're scared running into the fire? Hell yeah. But that's where they go because that's where they know, their job is. So the same thing for us. Like every time I need to make a decision, if I am scared, if I am uncertain, I'm like, all right, well, this actually is meaningful. Otherwise, if it's easy, it's like, well, do I even need to make this decision? So that's what it is. Like you're always making a decision. You're either deciding to do something or deciding not to do something, but a decision is being made.
This is powerful. Yeah, I love it. 100%. You either you make the decision today or you pushing it just to the future. But either way, if you really want to accomplish anything, you literally still would have to go through making the decision or so on.
And one more thing I would want to add there is one thing that I always try to do in 2014-15 was one of the worst time of my life, because I was running I was running a business into the ground. I did not know what the hell I was doing. I had no money. I was in debt. And there were a lot of close calls that I was making on a daily basis that would it was a fine line between going out of business and staying in business. And what I would do always, every time I approached something that made me feel fearful to make it, a decision that would make me fearful to make it, I would always look at the worst case scenario. What is the worst case scenario, right? If this goes completely not according to plan, what is that worst case scenario? Make myself be okay with that, feel okay with that, feel it in my body, feel comfortable with it. Okay, now let me go and try to work my way closer to best case scenario, further away from worst case scenario, knowing that if worst case scenario does happen, I'm okay with that. I've already made myself okay with that. You know what I mean?
That's so good. Yeah, this is really good. This is really good. You just, oh my, yeah, that was super powerful. So when it comes to, so the first obstacle that you basically had, or the biggest obstacle that you had, it was that you had too much confidence, so your ego. Was there anything else, or what was the, for example, when it comes to skills that you had to develop in the first place to be able to be successful in business? What was your main blind spot that you had to like focus on the most to get into, where you are?
Realizing the kind of, well, a couple things. Very early on was focus, was doing one thing and focusing on it. As an entrepreneur, it is a blessing to be able to start things very quickly, to go from idea to execution super fast. The problem is a lot of people get stuck in that. So they come up with an idea, they execute on it, they get a result, and then they get another idea, they execute on it, they get a little result, and then they get another idea, they execute on it, get a little result, but guess what happens? That first idea crashed and burned. Because the minute you take your focus off of the main thing, it crashes and burns, which is why usually entrepreneurs, you see their results like this. You'll see them crushing, and then they disappear. Then they crush, then they disappear. Then they crush, then they disappear. And so it was realizing that that's what's going on, and that if I really want to make something successful, I need to have what I like to call a staying power. When things go bad, I don't jump on the next shiny object, I stick to it, and I find the solution and I scale it. The problem is, I'm not the solution guy. I'm not the problem-solving guy. I'm the idea guy. I'm the idea guy, and I go from 0 to 1 very quickly. I can lose everything and, start from ground zero tomorrow and make my first million in 2 to 4 months. Like that. Now, to go from 1 to 10 million, that's where I can't do. What I will do is I will make $1 million 10 times instead of making 10 million one time. And to make and to scale your wealth, you need to make 1 million one time or 10 million one time instead of 1 million 10 times. Because the problem is every time you start something new, you need new momentum, you need new everything. You're starting from ground zero. And so what I realized is that if I want to go from 1 to 10, 10 to 100, 100 to a billion, I need people around me. I need people that are smarter than me in places that I lack, places that I suck. So it took true humility and deep down look and saying that I suck at this, I suck at that, I suck at that, and that's all okay. And I think that's where a lot of people, they fear from admitting things that they suck, because they think if they suck at something, that means they're losers. But it's not. Because just like you suck at certain things, you are brilliant at other things. And when you focus on your areas of brilliance and you delegate the areas that you suck at, that's how you can grow. And so it was, okay, how do I focus on one thing? And then what are the things that I lack at, that I'm not good at? How do I find people, attract them to the mission, attract them to where I'm going, provide a big enough opportunity for them to come join me, and then both of us grow together. That's why one of our core values at BJK University is together we win. Alone you go fast, together we go far.
Yep. Yeah. This is powerful. Yeah, I love it. Because, when it comes to, the biggest success I experience always when I've been not looking on things like how I can do it, but who can help me to do it. Like not how, but who can who can I bring on the table to actually help me to scale it even further and so on. Yeah, so this is really strong when it comes to, because like at the beginning I was always like alone doing hustling all the time, and most of the entrepreneurs do that because they think like the entrepreneurship is the lonely game, you know what I mean? Like, you should be doing it all on your own, you should learn 100 skills to be able to even accomplish something and so on, because this is like how it seems like that everything around on the internet is literally like how those gurus and so many people presenting it, right? One of the really important things that I figured out along my journey and all of that sales is like the crucial element in a business. Like, if you don't know how to sell, and that the thing that I want to bring up is because most people are resistant to sales because they are sold on that, sell means to be pushy or corny, and like salespeople are, bad people and so on. But without being able to raise money, you are not in a business, basically. How did you get into sales? How did you learn sell and so on?
Well, to be honest with you, I wasn't, I didn't have a thought about sales. I wasn't like, I didn't like it or not like it or anything. The way that I got into sales and needing to actually sell stuff was when well, let me take a step back. The first thing that I ever sold was at McDonald's. And that's when I had a job, and my job was to take orders on the drive-thru and sell people food, right? And so that was kind of my very first experience when, when it came to people asking for a service or a product and then me delivering it and getting paid for it. Obviously, I was under the flag of McDonald's, so I wasn't under my own flag, right? So that was a completely different story. The first, I would say, the first like 4 years, 5 years of my, journey of being in the workforce, I worked at restaurants, and that's all what it was, right? And so I learned, I guess you could say I learned sales that way. Mm-hmm. And what I quickly realized is that just by asking, people will take. And if you don't ask, people won't take. Right? And so I was always the guy that asked, do you want to get a fries and drink with that? Do you want to make it large or whatever? Do you want to get a pie with that? Then later I got a job at a Greek restaurant, which is still my favorite Greek food in San Diego. Every time I go back to visit, I have to go and eat there. I was always the guy that asked, do you want dessert? Would you like an ice cream cone? What about a drink? Do you want some fries with that? I was always the guy that asked. And I always sold more stuff than everybody else because I simply asked. Mm-hmm. And so what I quickly realized is that if you just ask, you'll get. It's like, ask and you shall receive, right? Same thing. Yeah. If you don't ask, you won't receive. And so that's the very first, and I think it's like sales 101. It's like you got to ask, otherwise you won't receive. Now, beyond that, I also, for a while there, had the idea of, I don't want to be sold to. Because I remember as a teenager, I would go to dealers and look at like cars and, I wanted this car as a 19-year-old. I wanted to drive this car, that car, whatever. And the minute I walked into the dealer, it's like, all the freaking car dealer, car salesmen came storming, right? And it's like, I'm just looking. Naturally, humans, consciously or subconsciously, we don't like to be sold to. And we know when someone is trying to sell us. Mm-hmm. Although deep down, we understand, and well, I don't know about if we all understand, but we must understand that everything you have right now, just look around you, in your possession, someone sold you the stuff, right? And look at, let's say, grab your phone. Someone sold it to you, yes, but wouldn't you agree that if someone had not convinced you to buy it, your life would have not been the same? Your life is better right now because of your phone. You might think maybe your life is is worse because of social media or whatever, but that's your habits. It's not it's not the phone provider's fault, right? Everything you have, this computer, everything that this mic, everything, someone sold it to me, and my life is better because of it. Now, if I frown upon sales, that means I'm frowning upon good service. I'm frowning upon a better life, and that's just the mindset shift. It's a very simple thing. I've had a therapist for the last 3 years. And when I first started working with her, I had just come out of I was into it. I had just had a seizure 3 weeks prior. Out of nowhere, I had a seizure, and it rocked my world. I felt like I thought I was going to die. My doctor said that they found a scratch in my brain. He couldn't explain it. I thought things were going very, very badly for me, health-wise. And I started working with her. And the very first thing that we did was this thing that she calls them intensives. She will take 2 days where I fly to her, she flies to me, and then for 2 days we literally I unplug from everything, and then we go into a specific topic. When I first started, it was anxiety and panic attacks and all that kind of stuff, and then from there was marriage, then it was like business goals and all that kind of stuff. I used to have intensives over there every quarter, then they went semi-annual, then now they're annual. And I can feel that her business hasn't been the greatest lately. Mm-hmm. And so 2 occasions over last month, she's been trying to sell me on why I should have an intensive with her more often than once per year. And the second time was like 2 weeks away from the first time. And for a while there, I'm like, what the fuck, man? I'm feeling like I'm being sold here. And I was about to text her that, and then I was like, hang on a second. You can't hate on a lady trying to run her business. I do that all the fucking time, right? And it's like, it's part of business. She's an entrepreneur. She's doing her thing. Don't hate on her. You don't want it? Great. Just tell her you don't want it. Move on. It is what it is. And so again, but I know that every time we do an intensive, my life is completely changed. Whatever topic I go into with a big problem, I come out with a big ass solution, right? Mm-hmm. So I know my life is better with those intensives. So again, people who frown upon sales, just understand everything you own, someone at some point sold it to you, and your life is better because of it. And understand, the wealth that you're looking for is you selling something to someone else. And understand, you have something that someone else values and they need, not want, need. And if you don't sell it to them, their life will not be impacted. So in fact, you have a moral obligation to sell people stuff, the stuff that you have, because that stuff will change their lives. That's my take on sales.
100%. Yeah, love it. Love it, brother. It was intense, but really cool. Like, I love it. Yeah. And thank you for sharing this personal story, because like, you know, this is like, okay, so now what you do actually? What is your thing? What do you do? Like, what you are passionate about? What is your thing in business?
I'm passionate about two things: making money and helping people. I don't give a shit what it is. I think there is a big thing. Like even right now, as I was saying it, I kind of thought about it. You know, in the beginning, I was talking about how if I had become a doctor, I would have done something that I was not interested in. But then think about it. Does being a doctor make money? Yes. Does it help people? Yes. Okay. Why not do it? So what? My mom tried to sell me on it. So I would have probably been able to still become an entrepreneurial doctor. You know, there's a lot of doctors that I know that go to, advanced medicine, go to, invent certain things, certain, cure diseases, build hospitals, become multi-billionaires, right? Would I not have been able to accomplish my dreams, my entrepreneurial dreams as a doctor? I probably would have been, Now, I didn't choose it, and that's completely okay. I chose a different route. But my passion is, if it makes money, if it helps people, I'm passionate about it. And I think there is a thing around this word passion that I think gets misused. I always say, fuck your passion. If you didn't wake up with a soccer ball in your foot, with a football in your hand, with a great voice, with, great skill that you and your parents or, relatives were able to see at an early age, fuck your passion. Because whatever you're passionate about, that's just bullshit, a bunch of bullshit, right? Remember, we're optimizing for feelings. And we think that if we do our, if we pursue our passion, we're going to feel great. Trust me.
Yep.
I've seen so many passionate people miserable.
Yep.
Why? Because they chose something, a profession that doesn't pay the bills. And yeah, maybe they're doing something they enjoy. Their bills are piling up. When someone needs help, guess what? They can't help, right? They can't provide their loved ones the life that they want. So if personally for me, I always say, find something that makes you money, find something that helps people, you can get passionate about that. And the reason why I say makes you money and helping people, in the beginning, we all have to start with making money, especially when you don't have money. Now, if you're Donald Trump's son, it doesn't matter, right? You can do whatever the fuck you want. Yeah. But if you're not, if you're the average person like you and I, you need to focus on making money in the beginning. However, the focus on making money has to shift. Once you get to, I don't think there's a number to every person. It depends on where you live. If you live in India, it's probably different than if you live in Miami, right? If you live in India, maybe $1,000 a month, it's like, oh my God. If you live in Miami, it's like, unless I'm making 15, 20 grand a month, it's like, there's not a whole lot of, too much that I can do here. And so it's different, right? But there is a certain number for every person that once you get to it, it's like, okay, now what? Like, why am I going to continue doing this? You're going to relax. You're going to kick back, you kick up your feet. And that's where trouble starts happening. You must always be growing, because if you're not growing, you're dying. So that's why I said money and helping people. Because after you achieve all of your financial needs, then the driver becomes doing the same for other people. Seeing others' lives get impacted because of the thing that you're doing for them. Seeing them being able to provide the life that their loved ones desire. Seeing them, we have over 7,000 paid members inside of our communities, and we have people that make anywhere between $1,000 to $1 million a year to millions per year. And I've seen many people's lives change because of the services that we provide, and that for me drives me, right? But don't be fooled. I still want to become super fucking rich. I want to become a billionaire by 40. I'm 35 right now. And so it's like, again, both of those drive me at the same time. It's not either or. It's both at the same time. Making money and helping people, that's my passion. That's what I focus on doing. What I do right now, and the way that I accomplish that, is in 2019, I started BJK University, which is an education platform with a mission to impact 1 million lives by 2030 through empowering families with skills they can turn into income. When I first started, the one skill that we were providing people was teaching them how to become Amazon sellers, because I started selling on Amazon in 2015. Today we have two different skills, Amazon sellers, and also teaching people how to leverage AI to help small businesses make more money, become more efficient while getting paid for their services.
Yeah, yeah. So, was like some addition to your to that program that you start building, like when AI came up and so on, like how exactly you use AI, for example, into your business, and like because like this is really hot topic now, and people like I think like in a couple of years, like even now, I think it's already like every business at least trying to figure out somehow how they can plug AI into it, and like with the power of AI and starting businesses these days is like those people has just a huge advantage from what we like how we've been starting out, scripting funnels, doing all of those things. Like it's so fast, you can like get emails done super fast, like everything it's all about like speed these days.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a stat that I saw the other day. It said, on average, a small business in America loses on $126,000 per year for simply not answering the phone. Let's just say you're a plumber, you are a HVAC company, you are a contractor, and you're busy. You're in the middle of fixing a sink, you're in the middle of changing a roof or whatever. Your phone rings, you don't answer. Guess what the person that's on the other side is going to do? He's going to call the next guy, right? I literally did it 2 days ago. Our insurance just doubled overnight, and I was like, what the hell is going on? So I got on Google and I was like, insurance agents near me. I found like 15. I called the first guy, didn't answer. The second guy didn't answer. The third guy answered. Guess what? He got our policy. And so that right there, on average, costs small businesses in America alone 126 grand. Well, guess what? As an AI business strategist, which what we teach people how to become, you can install a simple AI agent or something in that business. And there's, as you said, it's super simple right now, drag and drop. These businesses don't know, neither do they have the time to go learn, but you know, and you can install it for them. And just think about it. If you help a business make an additional 100 grand a year, how much are they willing to pay you? 20%, 10%, 5%, 2%? It's like, okay, let them pay me 2 grand. Great. You just made $2,000. Maybe it took you an hour to set it up, right? And then you can charge them a couple $100 a month to maintain it. 10 of those, all of a sudden you're up to, 5, 10, 20 grand a month doing this stuff, learning, implementing solutions that are literally templated for you, that are drag and drop, and you don't need coding skills, you don't need background, tech skills for you to be able to do this. But to circle back to just AI in general, if you're not leveraging AI in 2026, it's like saying I'm not going to use the internet in 1999, 2000. It's like, no, I don't need to build a website for my business. I'm okay, putting ads in the yellow pages and stuff like that. That's just kind of the same thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. This is pretty cool. Why did you decide to, like, it was probably like, but I'm gonna ask either way. Why do you go for brick and mortar businesses, service providers, like physical? Because like most of the people you can see, like they're encouraging, or like the biggest gurus and so on talks about like all going for like online businesses, coaches, consultants. Why would you go for brick and mortar rather than for coaches and consultants?
Well, you just said everyone is talking about coaches and consultants. So when everyone goes right, you go left. Everyone goes left, you go right. You gotta do. There was a book by Marty Neumeyer, I think his name was. The book was called Zag. It was a branding book. One note that I got from there, he said, "Hit them where they ain't." That means approach people where in places where they're not. Same thing here. Everyone and their mom is saying, you guys should do this. Guess what? Everyone's eyes here. Everyone's, the competition is going to be fierce there.
From your advantage, basically, and going the other way because there is not as many competition and so on. Yeah. Yep.
Exactly. Because like, let's say I own an online business. How many people do you think hit me up every day offering me AI solutions? Man, my inbox is filled. Every day there's like 15 new friggin' inquiries. But a plumber down the street, how many people do you think are hitting him up every day for, installing AI solutions? Maybe once a month, once every other month, if that, right?
Very little, yeah.
And it's there's pros and cons, obviously, because an online entrepreneur obviously understands the power of AI, has used it, knows what it is, stuff like that. But he also has a lot of options. A brick and mortar business obviously probably has a little bit a little bit more resistant to technology, maybe older, maybe doesn't understand, not very adaptable, but there's less inquiries that he gets, less competition, and you can impress him a lot faster.
Yep.
You can literally slap a website together within seconds and go show it to a restaurateur down the street and be like, hey, bro, I just built you a website. Would you like me to install it for you? It'll take me 10 minutes. It'll cost you $1,000. You down? Versus if you come to me, I'll laugh at you and walk you out the door and be like, get the fuck out of here. What are you talking about? You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so it's, they're easily impressed.
Yep.
And there's less competition, less noise.
Yeah. When you're going other way, when you're going for online business and so on, like you are competing with the best of the best on the market, basically.
And not just that, I think someone that owns a brick and mortar business is more committed to business than an online coach.
Ooh, why is that?
Well, let's face it. What's the barrier to entry to start an online business versus a brick and mortar store? Like, I owned brick and mortar before going online. For 9 years, I was in retail and brick and mortar. You have to lease at least a year minimum, right? You have to put a deposit. Like for me, my rent was $5,000. I had to put first month, last month, security. That was 15 grand. Okay. Then I was 23 years old, so they asked for a cosigner because I had no credit. So my father and my uncle co-signed for me. Then I have to hire employees, and I have taxes on those employees. Then I have to buy fixtures. Then I have, the restaurant costs us 200 grand. Versus if I want to say launch an online course, or if I want to launch a newsletter or a PDF or whatever, what does that cost? I need a mailer, like a MailChimp or whatever, I need a ClickFunnels or Go High Level or whatever that is, a couple $100. With literally about $500, I can start an online business and start generating income tomorrow, right? So I feel like a brick and mortar entrepreneur is more committed and more like in it for the long haul versus an online coach that might start something today and then might start something completely tomorrow and then something else later and then go get a job here, start an agency, go, you know what I mean? Just like all over the place.
Yeah, because the investment is basically tied there more. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense, 100%. Yeah, thank you so much, brother. This was awesome, totally. I have maybe like a couple of few questions before we wrap up. What time is it? 50. Okay, so when it comes to you, so I heard that you are heading, can you repeat that, where you are heading with the all, with your business and so on? What is your goal for that you're trying to go for?
So our mission is to impact 1 million lives by 2030 through empowering families with skills they can turn into income.
Awesome.
Right now, we provide them 2 different skills. One of them is being an e-commerce seller, owning an e-commerce brand. The second one is leveraging AI to help small businesses. And both could be done from anywhere in the world. That's the beautiful thing about it. We have students from 47 different countries. By 2029, our goal is to have $1 billion exit, and that's kind of what we're working towards right now. Over the last probably, year and a half or so, we have implemented AI in every single aspect and facet of our business. We've been able to reduce expenses, reduce the amount of people we have in the company, while maintaining, top line, and obviously improving cash flow and improving profits. And so, as the world changes, you have to be willing to change with it. And that was something that I did not understand until I read a line in Patrick Bet-David's book. He said, you must be willing to, what was the word that he used? Not redo, revision or something. Pretty much you must be able to like reconfigure yourself every 3 to 6 months. 3 to 6 months. You have to like redo yourself, right? Reinvent yourself. That was the word. You have to reinvent yourself every 6 months. Otherwise, you'll be wiped out by the new technology, by the new competitor, by the new whatever. Especially right now with AI, things are moving so fast. Like speaking about online, online education, I think online education is actually the entire industry is going to be facing a decline, and it's going to be a very steep decline. Because right now, our competition is, for me, when I first started, I wouldn't look at like other competitors in the space. I would look at like, how does Harvard run their thing? How does Stanford run their thing? I was like, these are my competitors because that's the size that I want to get to. But right now, our competitor is ChatGPT, it's Claude, it's Gemini, because information is so accessible and so affordable through that. It might not give the customer complete information, but it gives them the perceived value of have everything I need. They might not know the right questions to ask, so that way they can get the right knowledge, but they have the perceived thought process that, oh, I do have everything I need. And so I believe that in the next 2 to 3 years, online education, if it doesn't change the way it looks, I think it'll be extinct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. My thought process is very, very similar, because but there is one thing on that. Do you think that people take every information from AI modules and everything like seriously, or there is like the lack of type of authority that is not coming up from authority?
Those that do, those that don't will. It's just it's a simple adaptation curve. Mm-hmm. There's early adapters, there is late adapters, there is all kinds of different things. And so it's just a matter of time. That's all it is. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Same thing as, I don't know. I mean, think about Google when it first came out. Who the hell believed things that were on Google? Now it's like, you swear by it. Same thing with legacy media. Then it became podcasts. Then it's a source of information. That's all it is. In the beginning, you might be doubtful until you start hearing people around you talking about how they leveraged AI to accomplish this. They did this, and I was able to shrink the time that I spent here from that to this. And like you were talking about copy and stuff like that. Like, yeah. I remember 2 years ago we used to hire copywriters and funnel designers and video editors. Right now, it's like, bro, you are a fucking mini marketing agency. You need to be able to know how to write copy, design funnels, run ads. Like you must be able to do all of it. Otherwise, you're no longer valuable to me as a copywriter. What the fuck are you talking about? I can go talk to ChatGPT and come up with emails. Now, is it gonna 5 out of 10? But I'd rather get a 7.5 out of 10 than pay someone $3,000-$4,000 a month. Does that make sense? I can make up the delta there. 100%. And so, when you talk to copywriters who say, I used to have 2 clients and now I have 7 because I use ChatGPT, well, all of a sudden it's like other copywriters around them will start saying, well, shit, maybe I can now trust ChatGPT more or whatever. And so it's just a matter of time before people start leveraging it for day to day. I spend 2 to 3 hours a day on ChatGPT.
Yeah, 100%. It's like my second brain, literally. Like I'm using all the time. Yeah, exactly. 100%. Well, thank you, brother. Last thing, what would be the most important thing that you would like to those listeners who are to take from this conversation? Your results are the average results of the 5 people that you hang out with. If you want better results, change your environment. Change your environment, change your life. If you are struggling right now because you're not where you want to be, look around. Look at the last week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and look at the 3 to 4, 5, 6 people that you hung out with, and then compare their results to the result that you want to accomplish. I was making, I think, 10, 12, 15K a month, and did for about a year and a half. And everywhere I went, people told me how great I was, how successful I was, how everything was so great. And then I looked around, and I remember one day I enrolled in this program, and the first day I enrolled, it was Sam Ovens' program. The first day, this guy posted his screenshot. Same thing. He was also an Amazon coach like me. He posted a screenshot, and he had collected $57,000 in 2 weeks. And my jaw dropped. In my mind, I'm like, this guy is going to collect $100,000 this month. Everything changed for me. After that, I was making $100,000 a month, then $500,000 a month, then $1 million a month, then $2 million a month. And then I realized that the only thing that changed is my circle. Because my circle then were my friends in high school that I still love and I still go visit every time I go back to California. They have jobs and they do great, And I was the greatest in terms of income, that is, right? I'm not saying I'm better than them or anything. I was making more money than everyone around me, my cousins, everyone, until I went and joined another community, and I realized that I am nothing. I am nobody to these guys, right? Because there were people making more in a single day than I was in a single month. And I was like, holy shit. And that's why I moved from California all the way came to Miami and wanted something different. And so if your results are not satisfactory right now, change your circle, because changing your circle changes your life. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you, brother. And for everybody who's listening, it was Bashar Katu, and I'm really pumped, and it was amazing conversation. Thank you, brother. Thank you for your time, and thank you for being here, and we will see you all guys in the next episode. Bye for now.